Hey, all, Treebeard here. Uh, I said I was going to tell a story about tabletop RPGs, and this is the story of the first one I've ever run on a Skype game. And incidentally, also where I learned a very valuable lesson about GMing any tabletop RPG. This one got started with me and two of my friends who aren't in Hoof Hearted, but they're good friends of mine. Names will be changed to protect the innocent for now, unless they decide they're okay with being named. But this is a story of me, Kevin, and Harriet. Now, Kevin and Harriet were both brony friends of mine, and I talked to them about getting together for a tabletop RPG over Skype, and I told them about Changeling the Lost. And for those of you who don't know, Changeling the Lost is part of New World of Darkness, which is a tabletop RPG setting where everything that's supernatural is real in the worst possible way. And it's in modern, semi-real world setting. And what Changeling is that it's about human beings who were captured by fairies. And fairies in this universe are fucking terrifying. And these fairies had warped these humans to serve a particular purpose, or to take a particular kind of form. Hence, changelings. And you have these six kind of races of changelings. There's beasts, darklings, fairest, elementals, ogres, and wizened. I'll expound on each of them as they come up. And you also have the four courts, the summer, spring, winter, and fall courts, and each of them has a particular emotion attached to them. And at some point, the player characters escape the fairies' clutches and go into the real world and try to put their lives back together or start new ones among other changelings and the changeling courts. Now, I decided to start this game at the very beginning, and the way I sold it to Kevin and Harriet was, I'm like, okay, in this game you can be basically anything. So do you guys want to be like, you could be My Little Pony characters as humans that were turned into like animal type creatures. And it's like okay, yeah, we can do that. We'll have like their personalities and shit. So Kevin was Cotton Jack, who was essentially an Applejack analog, except he worked cotton fields and he was male. Cotton Jack was from the point that he didn't recognize most modern technology. And then we had the Fluttershy character. Fluttershy was, and these two were both beast seemings. Cotton Jack was a horse, because horse, and Fluttershy was like a butterfly seeming, because why not? And both of them went by these names because amongst the Fae, revealing your true name basically gives somebody enormous power over you. So, this game starts off like at the very beginning, like when these two are captured by a true Fae who is called the Curator. And Cotton Jack was working the fields, and Fluttershy was pinned to a giant, like, you know those, like, boards where they have dead bugs stuck on there on pins? Yeah, she was on one of those. But she was still alive because Fae magic is wacky. And at some point, Cotton Jack catches a glimpse of an army lining up on the horizon. And this is in Arcadia, mind you, so it's kind of weird. things are weird, but seeing changelings from other domains of other true fae coming into another region is kind of weird. And they're all led by a true fae, this giant lady that's made of a bunch of bladed weapons. I can't remember what I called her, but I'm gonna call her Kerrigan for now because Queen of Blades. Cut little StarCraft joke. But yeah, the true fae Kerrigan was leading these people, was leading this army over to the cotton fields of the Curator. And in the chaos that arose from the invasion of them rushing in and just wrecking shit, Cotton Jack kind of saw an opportunity to escape. But he wanted to go inside first to get Fluttershy because he knew there was somebody else in there. So he went over, he pulled her off the wall, and they went into the hedge, which is essentially the border between Arcadia and our world. And the most trouble they really encountered, and they got kind of lucky here, actually, because the hedge is full of like weird twists and turns and monsters. But they did get kind of lucky. They managed to get through with very little incident. The worst that really happened being that Cotton Jack accidentally ate a fruit that caused you to breathe fire, and well, let's just say the fire kind of came out of both ends. Beyond that, they were fine. And when they came out, they found this mansion, this old dilapidated mansion in Savannah, Georgia. And they noticed that there's a lot of other changelings hanging out there, so they're like, huh, so other people have gotten out. Let's go check this out. And it was a meeting of the Autumn Court, which they have learned has been dominant in Savannah, Georgia. In Changeling the Lost, this is weird, because normally each of the seasonal courts would kind of rotate leadership depending on, you guessed it, the seasons. But in Savannah, the Autumn Court kind of ruled supreme. And there was a few reasons for this, among them being the fact that Savannah, Georgia is actually considered, among people who believe such things, to be the most haunted city in the United States. And I think that may have been the reason for them setting The Walking Dead there, but I don't know. But yeah, they go over to this mansion, and it's a big Autumn Court meeting. And Autumn Court is the court of fear. And when I made this campaign, I sort of made it I conceived it as this really strange My Little Pony meets Nightmare Before Christmas hybrid. Because this was back in the days when you like mashed Pony with everything and see what came out. And they were kind of going through it, and they were talking to a bunch of different people in this mansion and in the Autumn Court. And they kind of learned that this assembly was supposed to be some kind of announcement from the Jack Skellington analog, which I named Smilin' Jack because I was an original. But yeah, Jack Skellington was supposed to like come up and announce that he was finally going to start the seasonal rotations again. And what ended up happening was that Jack was kidnapped before he could give this speech. And it's at this point that the Oogie Boogie analog, which I named Otis Bogart because OB, Oogie Boogie, he kind of came into play, and he said, oh, Jack, well, since Jack is gone, I guess I'll have to take over and start an effort to try and find him. Of course, but our intrepid changeling started asking around about Otis Bogart. And there were people who were not happy about Oogie Boogie taking control of the town, about Otis Bogart. And they're asking, well, what's this Otis Bogart guy like? And he's like, oh, man. Okay, Jack Skellington, this world, Jack Skellington was like, okay, we need to gather fear, but we need to do it in a way that doesn't kill people. We need to, like, inspire fear in a way that's kind of fun and lighthearted and kind of keeps up the spirit of the town without actually hurting anybody, because nobody can be afraid if they're dead, right? So Jack kind of wanted this peaceful coexistence with the mortal population of Savannah. Otis Bogart kind of thought that people weren't ever really going to be scared if nobody died. And he had this penchant for making sure they die in gruesome ways. And I mentioned that Otis Bogart may or may not have eaten a few people because he was an ogre. And ogre changelings, a few of them have, shall we say, voracious appetites. Some of them even have an appetite for human flesh. Yeah. Otis Bogart kind of had one of those. And he was an ogre. So they thought. And yeah, rumors went around that he had these 3 little minions, Lock, Shock, and Barrel, who would go around, like, they would, like, beat people to death or near to death, or they would, like, bring them over to or people that got on Otis Bogart's bad side would get eaten. And as soon as Cotton Jack and Fluttershy hear this, they're like, no, we're done. No, we're not sticking around here. They're like, the 2 of them were scared shitless. This is like, no. I'm like, well, don't you want to try and solve the mystery? You don't get it. This fucker eats people. We're out. No, they were still in the game. They're still playing the game, but they didn't want to stay in Savannah because they're like, oh shit, we're gonna get fucking eaten. This kind of threw a wrench in my original plans, because I thought that they would, like, try and stick around, and every DM thinks that their players are gonna try and play along, but but usually they'll be wrong, and these guys were scared shitless of Otis Bogart. And on the one hand, it's good that they were that scared of him, because apparently I made him that intimidating, and I made the rumors really frightening, and I made his speech very. He always sounded like he was anticipating eating somebody. And they're like, I'm not getting eaten by this guy. So they kind of fled, and I'm like, well, how are you going to get away? And they're like, I don't know. I guess we'll just hide for now. And then okay, and I'm caught off guard. Shit! I made Oogie Boogie too scary. So I was trying to figure out how to salvage it, and I'm like, well, there are other places they could go. And then off the fly, I'm like, okay, this is Nightmare Before Christmas, so there's got to be, like, a Santa Claus, right? Yeah, there's a Santa Claus, and I named him Grandpa Wyatt, and he was the king of the Winter Court, and he was the one who power was supposed to be handed off to by Jack Skellington, because, yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas. So I did make him before, and he was going to, like, help them out in trying to solve the mystery, but now I'm like, okay, you know what? They don't want to be here, so I'm going to make Santa Claus give them the Christmas present of getting the fuck out of Dodge. So Grandpa Wyatt's like, okay, I know you guys heard about Otis Bogart, and they're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm not sure you guys are in any shape to stay in this town as you are, but there's some people out west that are trying to find something that might be able to help. I've been in contact with people outside of Savannah trying to deal with Oogie Boogie because I knew the guy was shady for a while, but now that Jack Skellington's disappeared, this fucking cements it. And then he gives them bus tickets to New Orleans to meet up with an oracle, which is a kith, which is like a subspecies of the wizened race of changelings, and they basically do what it says on the tin. They're able to kind of see the future. And he gives them bus tickets to New Orleans to meet up with this oracle. And they're like, okay, yeah, we'll go there. Thank you, Sandy Claus. And they board the bus and they leave, and that's the end of the first session. So, as a GM, what this taught me was that you need to be prepared for when your players don't necessarily want to play ball. And I was kind of lucky that I included this plot point, and you have to kind of have all these different things sort of set up and ready to go. And what happened here was that my player character, I scared them too much. And when you scare your players, your players should be a little scared of things that are genuinely intimidating. But when you scare them too much out into inaction, you need to be prepared to kind of offer them alternatives. So, at this juncture, I have decided that, okay, yeah, Oogie Boogie is way too big for them to face right now, but there might be something out west that can help them, so it gave them it facilitated what they wanted to do. They didn't want to be there, so they left, so I gave them a way to do that. And it also allowed for the adventure to keep going. And it was a different one than I originally intended, but as we'll find out later, it turned out to be quite a journey in its own right. And yeah. So, thus began the journey out west for Changeling the Lost, away from the cotton fields back home. In this, the first of the sessions of Changeling the Lost that I ran, in which I made the main antagonist too scary for my heroes to face right away. But it all worked out because I remembered. I remembered to keep options open. That's something that you should always do as a GM, and that's something that I remembered to do. Make sure you have a few different contingencies in case your players don't want to do what you immediately thought they wanted to. Have something else for them to do. Have other things for them to do. Have other options. So, yeah, this is a big case of campaign derailment that was pretty quickly salvaged. So, yeah, that was the first session of Changeling the Lost. Tune in next time where we go to New Orleans and meet the Oracle and a singing bass. Catch y'all later.